Welcome back. We are starting, with the help of God, the next section of Sefer Chafetz Chaim, and this is the section where the Chafetz Chaim will enumerate the 14 positive commandments, the asay, the asin, that one can transgress when he speaks lashon hara rechilut about his fellow Jew. I will now begin with Hashem's help to elucidate a number of positive commandments. That one transgresses through engaging in a lashon hara rechilut account. As we pledged to speak of above at the beginning of the introduction. This I will now begin with the help of Hashem, my rock and redeemer. Someone who gossips about his fellow, besides transgressing the many negative commandments that we enumerated above, also transgresses a number of positive commandments. And I'll explain them one by one with Hashem's help. So before we go on with the first one, there needs to be some background for the first positive commandment that the Chafetz Chaim enumerates. And this requires for us to recall the episode of the story of Miriam, when she spoke lashon hara about her brother Moses. And this is all in Sefer Bamidbar, chapter 12. So briefly, Miriam came to her brother Aaron. Right, they're all brother and sister, Moses, Miriam, and Aaron. So Miriam came to her brother Aaron, and she told them, with criticism, right? She told them that Moses, their younger brother Moses, separated from his wife Zipporah without any, legitimate reason. And now this criticism that Miriam told Aaron, this was unwarranted, because Moses was on such a high level of prophecy that, in fact, his separation from his wife, he was demanded. This was demanded because of his high level of prophecy. But Miriam, because she did not properly appreciate the level of Moses' prophecy and that it was unique, therefore she was afflicted with tzaarat, leprosy, for speaking lashon hara about Moses. So it's a positive commandment, as the Chafetz Chaim will enumerate, to constantly remind ourselves about this event of how Miriam spoke lashon hara and how she received tzaarat, and the lesson about refraining from speaking lashon hara. And someone who speaks lashon hara actively transgresses this commandment. Someone who speaks lashon hara or rechilut, and the Ber Maim Chaim actually writes that this positive commandment only applies to the speaker, not to the listener. And the possible reasons for this is because we are told to remember what Miriam did, and since Miriam was, a speaker, not a listener, then in that case, only one who speaks negative things violates this command. So one who speaks lashon hara or rechilut thereby transgressed the positive command of Zchor et asher asa Hashem Elokecha leMiriam b'derech v'gomer. Remember what Hashem your God did to Miriam on the way. This is in Sefer Devarim chapter 24 verse 9. She'aziranu aTorah bazeh, for with this commandment the Torah cautions us sheniskor b'feh tamid ha'onesh hagadol, to constantly recall verbally the severe punishment of tzaarat, asher asa Hashem yitbarech letzadek et Miriam l'neviya, that Hashem, may he be blessed, brought upon the righteous prophet Miriam for speaking negatively about Moshe Rabbeinu. And according to many poskim, the Rishonim, this verse of remembering what Hashem did to Miriam, this is a biblical doraita obligation of every Jew. And some have the custom of reciting a verse at the end of prayer, reciting this verse at the end of prayer, and some have the custom of fulfilling the mitzvah when praying Avat Rabbah in a certain verse. And there are many different opinions of how you can fulfill this mitzvah. Some assert that this is a mitzvah that you have to fulfill every single day. Some assert that it's once a year, right? At the time of the reading of this portion in the Torah where it speaks about this incident. And some say that this only applies when one is faced with a trial to speak Lashon Hara, right? Where he's tempted to speak Lashon Hara, then in that case he should fortify himself by recounting the episode. Anyways, continuing. Shelo dibra eleh ba'achiv asher avtu kenafsha. Now, there are many factors that mitigated her transgression, right? She obviously was not a regular Lashon Hara speaker. Miriam spoke only about her younger brother, whom she loved as herself. She loved him dearly. V'igdalatchu al berakea, whom she had raised on her own knees. V'sikna atzma le'atzilo min hayam, and she had risked her life to save him from the river. Right when Moses was put in the river in a wicker basket, she risked her life when she was watching him and making sure that nothing would happen to him. Certainly, therefore, she did not mean to cause him any pain or distress. When she spoke about him, she did not disparage him, and erred only in the fact that she failed to appreciate his greatness, but equated him to other prophets. She didn't speak any disparagingly. She just incorrectly did not measure the greatness of Moses, and she compared him to other prophets. And she did not speak about him in his presence to shame him. Nor did she speak about him in public. Her comments were expressed between herself and her holy brother Aaron, the Kohen Gadol, in private. And in fact, Miriam thought that what she was doing was for a constructive purpose, because she thought that Moses was acting incorrectly, right? She thought that Moses, he's so holy, right? He's making himself look so holy that he's separating himself from his wife, and she thought that by saying this, it would be l'to'elet for his benefit, to change him, because she reasoned that someone who's a prophet does not need to separate his wife, right? If you read in the Torah, she says that, look, we, Moses and we, Aaron and Miriam, are also prophets, and we don't have to separate from our spouses. Well, then why does Moses, right? Is he any different than us? But, however, Miriam should have judged Moses favorably, and she should have thought that he had a good reason to do so. And in fact, she was mistaken, because Moses was on a much higher level, right? Moses was the greatest prophet to ever live. He was much higher a level prophecy than Miriam and Aaron and all other prophets. And on that level, a person requires abstinence from his spouse. And Moses was not even offended by these matters which she spoke of. As it is stated in that very passage, and the man Moses was exceedingly humble. Nevertheless, all her good deeds did not help her, and she was still punished with tzaarat for this. If Miriam, who was such a great person and she had such good intentions, received this punishment of tzaarat for speaking against her brother, how much more so did this apply to those foolish people who ramble on boastfully and astoundingly against their fellow, who will certainly be severely punished for doing so. And that is the first safe. We're going to go into the second safe. And this second safe talks about one who speaks Lashon Hara or accepts Lashon Hara also violates a fundamental mitzvah to love one's neighbor as he loves himself. Someone who speaks or believes Lashon Hara also transgresses the positive mitzvah of a very famous verse, you shall love your fellow as yourself. Right? This is in Sefer Vayikra chapter 19 verse 18. Shenitztavinu Bazel lachus al mamon chavero, whereby each of us is commanded to be as concerned about his fellow's money, kemo shehu chas al ken al shel atzmo, as he is concerned about his own money, velachus al kevod chavero lesaper mishivcho, and to be concerned about his fellow's honor and speak well of him, kemo shehu choshesh al kevod atzmo, just as he is mindful of his own honor. And there are different, right? The Chafetz Chaim, his words are drawn from the Rambam, the Chinuch, and these Rishonim, they understand the mitzvah of After L'ich Kamocha, is that you should wish each Jew, you should give him this the experience. You should wish him the to experience success and good things, just as one wishes for himself. Right, all the good that one wishes for himself, he should wish for others. The Ramban, Nachmanides, however, comments that this mitzvah, he accepts what the other Rishonim say, but he has slight variation. He also explains that the mitzvah is that a person should eradicate all jealousy from his heart, and that he is truly happy when his friends experience good. Okay. Continuing, when someone speaks lashon hara or rechilut about his fellow, or amekabel, or accepts lashon hara rechilut about another Jew, right? Not just speaking, but accepting also. Af im hadavar emet nir'eh ba'alil. It is abundantly obvious from his conduct, even if the negative report is true, she'eino avo klal, that he does not love does not love that other person, does not love his fellow at all. And it certainly is not fulfilling the mitzvah to love his fellow as yourself, right? You're not loving your fellow, you're not loving him as yourself. The greatest proof of this, right? The proof that he does not care about his fellow as he cares about himself, is as follows. Is it not so that every person is aware of his own faults, right? Everyone has their own faults that they are aware of. Yet he does not want under any circumstances that his fellow should not discover even 1,000th, right? 1 over 1,000 of his flaws. And if by chance someone does discover a few of his shortcomings would be discovered by his fellow, and his fellow would then go around telling other people about them, right? About your flaws. He would still wait and hope. If only Hashem would cause the listeners not to accept the speaker's words and not believe him. Right? You're not allowed to accept the lashon hara, and this is what the person is hoping. Right? He's hoping that Hashem will cause that the listeners don't believe what they hear about the bad things about him. All this apprehension results from a fervent desire that people not view him as being a dishonorable person. He fears this disgrace of knowing even a little bit of his bad deeds, although he knows himself to have committed many more sins than those which his fellow revealed about him, and he thus is in fact deserving of this real ill repute, right? This bad image. He is in fact deserving, since he committed so many sins. Nevertheless, due to his great love that he has for himself, everything else is swept aside because of his yearning to preserve his dignity. So too is precisely the same way. One is required by the Torah to do to his fellow Jew. To be concerned for his dignity in every possible way. Just as the person acted and hoped that his bad deeds would not come out, and so that he could preserve his dignity and that people wouldn't think bad about it, so too a person has to do the exact same way to another person so that someone else will not know. For it is not for no reason that the Torah transcribed for us the story of Noah, right? When he, after the story of the flood, he came and he became drunk and exposed himself, and then he was covered by his sons. As it is written, V'yashet, v'yishka, v'yegal, v'gomer, v'yareh ham, and Noah drank, and then he became drunk, and he uncovered himself, and he became naked, and then Ham, his son, which is also the father of Canaan, saw that his father was naked, and then he told his two brothers, Shem and Yefet. This is in all Sefer Bereshit, chapter 9, verse 21 to 23. V'Shem Yafet kesu et re'avat avihem, and his other two sons, Shem and Yefet, then came and covered his father's nakedness in order to save him from embarrassment. The Torah also records the blessing that Noah subsequently gave Shem and Yafet, and describes how it was eventually fulfilled. This incident is recorded to demonstrate the importance of this practice, that one must do his utmost to save another person from humiliation, just as he will do for himself. And that is the end of day 18. Thank you very much for listening. I'll see you later.